I was in the MTC in December and January. So here it was really snowy and really cold. And so I was in the airport in my big heavy winter coat and all dressed up. And I get to Sao Paulo for my connecting flight, and it was over 100 degrees. And so I was sitting there with my luggage and this heavy jacket on my arm, and I was thinking, how am I going to survive this? I bet people think I'm crazy. But after that, I got to the mission field or to the mission office, and there the mission president and his wife welcomed me and the other elders to the at the airport, and then they all took us to the mission office. And I went with the mission president and his wife in the car, and the elders went in another car. And I thought I was gonna die. They drive really, not necessarily hectically, but it was very different than driving here in the United States. And I know that the mission president knew what he was doing and everything, but I was still kind of terrified in that first moment. It was very warm, very warm. I got there in the middle of summer, and the first thing that everyone told me was, use sunscreen and drink 2 liters of water. I was like, okay, I'll do that, no worries. But other than that, the other impression that I had about Brazil is that everyone was really friendly. They were just all wanting to know where I came from, what I was doing there, and just wanted to get to know me and be friendly. So, yeah. So the Porto Alegre South mission is in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which is the very southernmost state in Brazil. So it's right on the border with Uruguay and Argentina. In Rio Grande, I just said it, not a Portuguese accent. In Rio Grande do Sul, there are 3 missions: Porto Alegre North, Santa Maria, and Porto Alegre South. And my mission is about half of Porto Alegre, and then it goes down all the way to the Uruguayan border, and then it gets to maybe an hour. It's like an hour east of Santa Maria is where the western border is. So it's kind of big. It takes about 8 hours to get from the bus station in Porto Alegre to the farthest most area, which is Dom Pedrito. I never served there, but I know of some sisters that went there and some other elders. There are a lot of wards. There's some bigger wards, especially in Porto Alegre, and then there's some smaller wards and stakes. There are several branches from what I understand. I only served in one, but I know that there are several other people that served in several. And I don't know if there was anything smaller than a branch or not, but the closest temple is in Porto Alegre. It's about 1 kilometer outside of the mission boundaries. But if you are serving in one of the 5 or 6 northern areas of the mission, then you're able to go to the temple once every 2 months because it's on a rotation. So that was really cool. I got to go to the temple a few times, and I was really glad for it, to be able to go to the temple. So I first served in Porto Alegre Alaum, which is the first ward in Porto Alegre. And then I went to Rio Grande, the city of Rio Grande, and I served in the Ala Junção, or the Junction ward. And then I went to Cachoeira do Sul and served in the branch of União, o Ramo União. And then I served in Guaíba Jardim, which is in the first stake that I served in, which was really cool. So Porto Alegre, from what I understand, is one of the biggest cities in Brazil. I think it's like the 5th largest city. It's got like over 4 million people in it, which is probably why they split the mission through Porto Alegre, because it's so big. The area that I served in, Alaum, it was half of the ward, and I guess it was Alaum West. It was the east side. It was over by the main, like the center of the city, and most of the area was like the market district, or like a lot of businesses, and there was a lot of skyscrapers. That's the word. There were a lot of skyscrapers and a lot of apartment buildings, not very many homes. It was also probably the richest ward in the mission. So there were a lot of people that were super busy, had a lot going on, really nice homes and areas. We also had one of the biggest, like, one of the most well-known roads, I guess, Avenida Farrapos. It goes way up in the north of the mission, all the way down to the center of the mission, north of the city to the center of the city, which is over by the water. There's a lake that's a big lake called, I'm pretty sure it's Lago dos Patos, which is like Duck Lake. It's huge. And that's on just inland of an inlet, of a strip of land between the ocean and the lake. And Porto Alegre, something that I know about Porto Alegre is that it is the home of two rival teams or soccer teams. There's Grêmio and Internacional. And they called you either gremista or colorado depending on which team you went for. And I kind of went for Grêmio. So I always said I was a gremista. And everyone was really like, why are you saying you're gremista? You're from Colorado. Why aren't you Colorado? So that was kind of fun. But you had to be careful about who you said which team you went for, because some people are very passionate about that. So that was kind of fun. I did get to see both stadiums, at least from a distance. So I did get to see both of them, and that was cool. So my second area, Rio Grande, was 5 hours by bus from Porto Alegre. So it was way down south, a lot closer to the Uruguayan border at this point. And my area was on a peninsula, because the city was kind of on a peninsula, and from the city, you take a boat to get to another city, another area. And so there were elders that had lived in that area, and they would ferry across a 20-30 minute ferry to get to district meetings every week. But so the area that I was in is called Junção, and we shared the area with a set of elders. It was a long, skinny area, and it was surrounded, so it was kind of a square, and we had city on two sides and on opposite sides, and then we had water on the other two opposite sides. So I was there as it was getting closer to the winter, and it got pretty cold. I had to wear my jacket and several layers underneath, and like 3 or 4 tights and socks and a couple of skirts sometimes, just walking around, and it rained a lot. So it was a very humid, wet, cold when I was there. But it was a really successful area for me, with companionships and with the work, and really putting myself out there and learning a lot. So it was really cool. So my last area is Guaíba. It's about 45 minutes by bus from Porto Alegre. And you can just grab the bus. It doesn't necessarily have to be one from the main bus station that like ships you from one city to another, but just the ones that run throughout the city itself, they can take you over to Guaíba. So even though Guaíba is a pretty big city and has several neighborhoods that are pretty big as well, the one that I stayed in was pretty small. And it was the ward itself. So it was interesting though, because it was kind of a self-sufficient neighborhood. They had like stores, pharmacies, they had everything that you really needed just right there, unless you needed the hospital. And then you needed to go more into the city. But you could basically just stay in that little area, and all the buses in Guaíba would go through União, which is it was Coabi. They would go through Coabi. That was what it was known as, the area. And it was the members there are very energetic. They love the missionaries and missionary work, and especially the sisters. They'd had sisters for about a year when I finally got there. And so it was really cool to see how the ward has progressed and how much they love the sisters and everything. And I loved the bishop there. He was gung-ho about everything, and it was great. The third area I went to was Cachoeira do Sul, and that one is a lot closer to the western border of the mission. It's about a 3-hour ride from Porto Alegre on the bus, and like an hour from Santa Maria, something like that. And that was where I served in a branch. And it was a really big area. It had originally been just for one set of sisters, and then they split the area for 2 sets of sisters because it was so big. While we were there, it was the two sets of sisters, and I was there for a trio, or in a trio for part of the time. Not very long, just a couple of weeks, because there were some things going on. But it was a really, really cool town. There are a lot of Catholics there. A lot. I feel like in Cachoeira do Sul there are some areas that are pretty isolated, that are pretty, they're kept pretty far away from the rest of the town and the country, or the state, I guess. That was probably one of my poorest areas that I was in. They lived in some pretty modest houses, and it was definitely eye-opening, but it was probably because I was more on the outskirts of the town and not necessarily in the center. But I loved that little branch. The people there have really warm hearts, and when they decide to join the church or be part of the church, they stay. So it was really sweet. I think it goes back to the first impression I had about Brazil, that everyone is just warm and friendly and wants to get to know you. And we would visit people on the streets, and I know that not everyone wanted to hear what we had to say, I think a lot of people thought we were Jehovah's Witnesses. They're like, no, we don't want any of that. It's like, okay, whatever, that's okay. We tried. But for the most part, people were really friendly, and especially in the summer when it was really hot outside, they said, oh, come in, we'll give you some water or some juice or something to eat. You've been out in the sun all day. What are you doing? Why don't you go inside? So we'd go inside and we'd talk to them and share a little message and get to know each other. And they seem to be a really open and friendly people. And it was a little bit different from here in the United States because almost everyone you greeted, they would greet you with a hug. It wasn't just like a handshake, hey, how are you? It was, oh, sister, brother, come here, give me a hug. And that was really cool. I definitely picked up the habit, just going around giving people hugs, and I loved it. So, I love the food. It's so good, especially in the South. A little bit more about Porto Alegre, or about Rio Grande do Sul. It's cowboy country. The Gaúchos are the cowboys. And so there's a lot of plains and cattle. There are also some mountains. But their churrasco is really big there. It's their barbecue. And they have these spits that they put the meat on. It's like 2-pronged spits. And they put them on, and they put the meat on the spits, and they put some really big grains of salt on it. That's how they season it. And then they stick it, there's the area where they grill or cook the meat is there's a bar for the spit to rest on, and then there are 2 holes on the opposite side that the 2 prongs sit on. So you stick them in there, and you can flip them over every once in a while so that it gets cooked all the way through. But oh man, it was so good. It's pretty similar to Tucanos. If you're familiar with Tucanos, that's very similar to the churrasco in the areas I served in, which is really good. Beyond that, we had a lot of chicken and beans and rice and potato salad and cooked kale and they also would do a lot of, everyone gave us desserts. I don't know if that was just because we were the missionaries and we were visiting, but the desserts were really good too. They had, I don't know what to call them in English, but we had mousse, and it was various flavors. It could be mousse de maracujá, which is like passion fruit, or morango, which is strawberry. Those were two of my favorites. They also had pudim, which is like flan, and I didn't think I was going to like it, but I ended up loving it. There's also arroz doce, which was a sweet rice, and I guess it's like rice pudding, but I'm not sure what rice pudding is otherwise. Something else about Porto Alegre. It's well known for the doces de pelotas. Pelotas is a city, it's pretty close to Rio Grande, and they just make a ton of sweets there. A lot of sweets and jams and jellies and desserts, and they're really good. They're well known too. It's, I could keep going about the food. The food was so good. It was really yummy. I know that some people would get sick of beans and rice, but I miss beans and rice. It's so good. Beans and rice with some sort of meat. Most of the time it was chicken. And most people would have like a small salad, whether it was like tomatoes and lettuce or beets and carrots or any kind of a mixture of those, or I guess that was the main part. Sometimes they would have fruit, but not very often. They mostly had fruit as dessert. So it was good too. It was all really tasty. Oh, and I learned to love star fruit there. I hadn't ever had star fruit before, but in my last area in Guaíba, there was a member who their family would give us, or would make us churrasco every time we ate at their house on Sunday. And there was one time where they said, "Hey, we have this star fruit tree. Have some star fruit." I'm like, okay. So we started eating it on the road, and I was like, oh, this is some of the best fruit I've ever had. I love this. It was really good. For me, learning Portuguese, it wasn't as hard as learning other languages as I thought it might have been. I had taken 3 years of French in high school, and then I did a semester of Italian here at BYU. And I wouldn't be able to tell you very much of Italian right now because it's pretty similar to Portuguese. But I had heard several people say that if you want to become fluent in a language, read the Book of Mormon out loud in that language. And I really took that into consideration, and I still do it. When I was in the MTC, there was a couple of days where my companion was pretty sick, and she was just sleeping during the day, and so I had to be with her in the dorm, so I'd get out my scripture study, and I'd do my scripture reading, and I remember one day I spent 2 hours walking up and down the halls reading my Portuguese Book of Mormon out loud with the little Portuguese that I knew, and I'm sure I was butchering a lot of it, but I was working mostly on the pronunciation, and my face hurt after that. My face and my throat hurt, just because I was using muscles I wasn't used to. But it started to get strengthened and everything, and my first week in the field, I really didn't understand much at all. The Portuguese they teach you helps a lot in the MTC, but until you go out and experience it, you're not entirely sure what all's going to happen. By the end of the first week, I could kind of pick out ideas, kind of. I remember the first lunch appointment we went to. They were talking and talking and talking, and then all of a sudden I recognized the word for swimming pool, and then I think I heard the word for beach, and I was like, I know what you guys are talking about. This is exciting. That first transfer was really difficult in regards to the language, but it improved a lot. And by the end of the transfer, I was able to understand at least what the topic was of everything. And I could kind of share my thoughts and feelings, but not nearly as much as I would have liked. But after that, my second companion in the field, she insisted on only speaking Portuguese all the time because she wanted to improve her Portuguese as well. And I thought, okay, I can do this. And I realized that there are a lot of small, like, insignificant words that I hadn't known, like things for toothbrush and the faucet for the sink and a bottle of water and things like that. I was like, there's a lot more to this language than I thought. And it was really kind of cool just throughout the whole time that I was there to see my progression. When I was about halfway through my mission, there was a brand new sister that was part of the area. Not necessarily the area, but the ward, the branch. So it was 2 sets of sisters, and the one, she's like, how do you know so much Portuguese already? I feel like I'm never going to learn it. And I thought, I do know a lot of this. There's a lot more of this than I know than I thought I do. But even if it seems hard, just keep working at it. It'll come. There will be days where it'll just click and you think, I get this. It'll work out. It'll make sense. And people, even though you may not use the best grammar or your pronunciation isn't the greatest, they're pretty good at just listening to what you have to say and being polite enough to have you say it yourself, unless you're really struggling. And then they looked at my companion. But I love the Portuguese language. It's a beautiful language, and I don't ever want to forget it. And so I've been working on it. I had heard of before my mission, my piano teacher, he had served his mission. I don't remember where he served, but he said that he still prays in his mission language. And I thought, I'll do that. I'll do that when I get home from my mission. I'll keep praying in my mission language. And I do. And so all my personal prayers have all been in Portuguese. And I think that's a pretty big factor as to why I'm still keeping up on the Portuguese. I only had about 4 months of my mission at this point, 4 or 5. And my companion was only like 6 months ahead of where I was. And we were both from here, and we were walking down the street, and there was a guy who walked up to us, and he said, do you want to go home today? And I was like, yes, but not right now. Do you want to go home today? Yes, but we have appointments that we have to get to. We have to do things. We will, but not right now. And so he got kind of fed up, and he said, can I use your thing? And the way that he used the word thing is like aparelho, and aparelho can mean like any kind of electronic device or something like that. But in this case, he was trying to say phone. Can I use your aparelho? It's like, oh, I think he wants to use our phone. And I wasn't sure what all was going on because I was only getting about half to 3/4 of what he was saying because I didn't have a whole lot of experience in the field yet or with the language. I could understand quite a bit, but not everything. And he was trying to ask us again, and we're like, I don't know what's going on. And then he got fed up again, and he kind of sighed, and he said, "Sou ladrão." And I thought at that moment, oh, he's from London. Because I thought it meant like Londres. He was from Londres. He's from London, and he wanted to get home today, and so he had to call someone on his phone, on our phone, because he lost his phone or something. So I was like, oh, sister, he just wants to call someone. Give him our phone. So she gave him the phone, and then he turned to me to ask for my phone, and I was like, oh, it's not what I thought it was. So I thought that this guy wanted to go home to London that day, but turns out he was a robber. Ladrão and Londres are not the same thing. I couldn't believe it had happened, to be honest. I was like, this just happened to us? We just got robbed? What the heck? It's a pretty funny story for me, just because I had that miscommunication in my head. It was pretty laid back. He wasn't... I considered him a patient robber. Not sure what he was on or anything, but he was very patient. Before coming over here, I was going through my mission journals and just kind of refreshing my memory on some things. And I went back to one zone conference from October 2014. And it talked about, during that conference, we talked about being a ship with no helm and how that means we have no direction, and about the little engine that could, and some other things like that. But we did this activity that I thought was really, really kind of cool. What we did is everyone in the zone conference, we went into the multicultural room, and we all put on a blindfold. So we all had a blindfold on, and there were only 4 or 8 people. I think there were 8 people that were not blindfolded. And we were given these instructions as we were blindfolded and we had to move around. We were told there would be 4 voices that we should try to follow, and there would be 4 voices that would try to take us the wrong direction. And I thought, okay, I can kind of see where this is going, but it was kind of different to experience it than it was just to hear about it. So we were wandering around, and I was afraid to move at first. At first, we were kind of clumped together, and several of us sisters, we like clung to one another. We're like, okay, I don't know where we're going. Where are we going to go? Don't know where we're going to go. And then I lost them some way or another. And I was walking, and I wasn't sure where I was going. And then I heard a voice that I recognized. I'm like, Sister Fouts, come this way, come this way. And I wasn't quite sure if I should follow this one or not. And I could kind of hear things, and I could kind of hear like he was smiling, but I wasn't sure. And then I ran into a wall. I was like, great, I ran into a wall. And then someone else came up, and it was another voice that I recognized, like, Sister Fats, follow me, I know where to go, follow me. And so he took me somewhere, and then I realized we were leaving all the noise, and I thought, okay, well, that could be a good thing. He's like, keep following me, Sister Fouts. I thought, okay. And then I realized we left the building, and I thought, I don't know if we're supposed to be outside of the building. And then he said, okay, now turn around and sit down. I was like, okay. So I felt there was a chair there, so I turned around and I started to sit, and then this other voice came up and was like, no, Sister Fouts, don't sit there. What are you doing? Get up. You're not supposed to sit there. You're supposed to keep moving. Come on, get up. And I thought, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm confused. And he said, come on, you gotta go with me. If you follow me, you won't be confused. And those other voices, they'll make you confused. And I thought, well, I'm definitely confused. So I better get up and move and do something else. So I sat there for a moment, and then I thought, I'm gonna follow this elder, because it was another elder that I knew. It was my zone leader currently. And he said, follow me, Sister Fouts, follow me. And so I started to follow him, and I was going slowly because I wasn't sure what was in my way or anything. And he said, oh, hold on for a second. I gotta help someone else. So I stayed put for a second, and then he went and got someone else. He's like, okay, sisters, you gotta follow me. And then he has, hold on, I gotta go get someone else. And so he grabbed someone else, and we started walking. And then we could hear the sounds diminishing as we started walking into an area that was more quiet, but it was also a lot brighter. And I thought, I see where this is going now. And so we get to the very end, and one of the senior sister and her husband were there at the end, and they each grabbed our hands and helped us sit down, and like, you made it. And I thought, this is so many lessons to it. One, even if there are some voices that we recognize, we have to pay attention to what's going on around us. You have to pay attention to where it's leading us and whether we're confused or not, because that confusion definitely won't come from God. And the other thing that was comforting was that the elder, he wasn't leaving us alone. He was just going to go help others as they needed it, so that we could all get to where we needed to go. And then just the feeling of the calm and the quiet and the brightness, it just reminded me of the temple and probably even the celestial kingdom. When we get there, when someone welcomes us at the end and says, you did it, you made it, you're here, you can rest, you've done it. It was a really cool experience to be able to go through that and have so many different thoughts come to mind in regards to how it fits in with the gospel and what I know. I'm pretty good at directions and looking at a map and kind of visualizing where I am within that map. And I'm also pretty good at getting lost. There were several times, 3 or 4 times, where we ended up taking the wrong bus instead of taking the right bus. There was one that I remember where we were trying to get to our lunch appointment after participating with part of another zone conference, musical number for another zone conference. And we had to hurry and get to our appointment for lunch in time. And I thought, oh, I think this bus will go close to where we need to go, because I remember this word or this name being close to where the member lives. And so she's like, okay, I trust you, because I had been there longer. So we get on the bus, and 40 minutes later, I realized we were going towards the end of the line, and I had no idea where we were. I thought, oh dear, what am I going to do? I have no idea where we are. And this was back before when I wasn't as bold or courageous, and so I was afraid to go up and ask the person at the front of the bus, is this going to this place? But I didn't say that. And we got to the end of the line, and the person at the bus who collected the money, she said, okay, you guys got to get off. We're at the end of the line. And I was like, I have no idea where we are. I thought we were going somewhere else. Could we please just stay here? We can pay you back and everything. She's like, well, I guess you guys can stay. But I could tell she was pretty, miffed. She doesn't usually do that. So we get off at this big bus station called the Triangle, which is like the triangle. And I had no idea where it was. I'm pretty sure we were outside of the mission. It's like, I have no idea where we are. So we asked some people, and they said, oh, you got to take this bus to get back to where you're trying to get. Oh, you got to take this bus. And they were conflicting accounts. We're like, oh, okay, what are we going to do? So we get on one bus, and before we pay, we ask, okay, is this going where we think it's going? It's like, oh, no, sorry, you're on the wrong bus. So we had to get down again. We had gone far enough away from the bus station. We could still see it, but it was a little ways away. Like, great, we got to walk back. So we get off the bus, and we're about to walk back, and there's this woman standing there, and she's like, hi, sisters, how are you? Like, you know, sisters? She's like, yeah. She's like, what are you doing here? She's like, well, we're lost. We're from Alum, and we're trying to get back. She said, well, lucky for you, I'm lost as well, or I missed my bus, or I'm on the wrong bus. My husband's coming to get me. So we can drop you off where you need to go. And I was like, thank you so much. It was a lifesaver in that moment. It was really nice. Probably one that has the most impact on me is self-esteem. I was really kind of struggling with this. I've struggled with it for a long time, but while I was on my mission, I was with my third companion in my second area, or my first companion in my second area. And we had mission interviews, and the mission president had come down to do interviews and have a meeting with us for our zone. And I was kind of struggling. I wasn't sure if I was doing things right. I wasn't sure how I was going to get along very well with my companion. And I was afraid, I guess. I was afraid of how things were going to happen and how they were going to work out. And my mission president, he could tell that I was afraid, and I was kind of shy and timid and worried. And he shared with me the story of the apostles on the ship, and then Peter going out onto the water to walk out to where the Savior was, and how he started out strong. He was doing well. He had his eyes on the Savior, and then he looked around, and his worries and his fears overcame his faith, and he started to sink. And so that was kind of a big turning point for me, to be able to trust not only in God but also in myself, so that I could have greater faith and trust in the Lord. Because if I didn't trust myself, how was I going to trust the Lord? And so that was a really big lesson for me, and I've overcome it a lot since that point, and there's still a lot to learn, but it's kind of cool because my mission president, he still kind of remembers those talks that we've had about self-esteem and not comparing yourself to others and only focusing on yourself and how you are improving each day and how you're better than a past self. And I had gone to a friend's wedding who is also from the mission, and we all had a chance to Skype with the mission president a little bit, those of us who were there from the mission. And he remembered that, and he asked me how it was going and how my self-esteem was, and I thought that was really sweet of him. I think after I started to get a little bit more self-esteem, I was able to be a little bit more bold. Being bold and courageous, I struggled with every once in a while on the mission. There were times where I'd just go right up and I'd talk to people and I'd be sure about it and just talk, and other times I was like, I should talk to them, but I don't feel like I want to talk to them. How am I going to talk to them? But when I got home, my dad had mentioned something about that. He's like, you're a lot more outgoing than you were before the mission. You just go out there and you say things. I was like, yeah, I guess I do. That's a good thing. And it comes and goes in waves. So there are times where I'm a little more timid, and other times where I just go for it, and because I know that it doesn't matter either way. I just gotta go and get it done, or I just gotta go and say something. I gotta make my mind known, or buck up the courage and just do something. So I think being bold and courageous has also helped a lot. That and patience. I remember there was one time in Cachoeira, it was P-Day, and so we were finishing up P-Day, and we had a family home evening planned, and we were going to walk over to the branch president's house to have it there with the others that were invited. And we looked outside as it got closer to 6, and we're like, that looks pretty dark outside. Not sure what's going to happen. And moments before we were about to leave the apartment, it just started pouring and the wind was blowing so fast that the palm trees were trying to kind of bend over a little bit, and it was super dark and lots of lightning and thunder, and I thought, I don't think we're going anywhere tonight. We would have, but as things were, it started blowing things around, and I'm pretty sure that was the same storm where it knocked out power in half of the city and also knocked out the water systems. So there were some people without light and water for a couple of days. So it was probably the craziest weather right there that I had experienced. But it wasn't always like that. We had some pretty crazy rainstorms, but that was probably the strongest one that I had been through. So the biggest thing that I wish I hadn't brought with me was the excess of P-Day clothes. So I had known that in the MTC we were going to have PE time like every single day. And I decided I was going to bring a different pair of clothes for each of those days because I wasn't sure when laundry day was going to happen, and I wasn't sure how much I was going to work out, so much that the clothes were kind of stinky and nasty. So I brought a lot of those clothes with me for exercising and things, and then I didn't really use all of them very much after that, and I wish I'd just sent them home from the MTC, but I didn't. So I had to carry them around the entire time, which was unfortunate, but it worked out in the long run. I was able to maintain my wardrobe fairly well and not have too much of an excess. There were sometimes I had a few extra boxes between transfers, but by the time I went home I had gotten rid of most of it, so that's a good thing. I was really glad that I had 3 pretty good walking shoes that I could rotate between, so that 1, they didn't get really stinky, and 2, they lasted longer. And you could have a little bit of a variety. And they all lasted me through my mission, so that's a good thing. I still have 2 of them. I use one of them occasionally, the other one I left at home on accident, but it works out pretty well. I think, at least for this mission, it gets really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. It got over 100, 110 sometimes in the summers, and it was really hot. Bring an umbrella. An umbrella is a really helpful thing for in the summers, because I always thought that umbrellas were just for rain, but it's really nice in the summer so you can protect yourself from the sun. Also, I brought a lot of tights so that I could layer up, and we were able to wear leggings underneath our tights, so you can have a little bit of a thicker insulation, I guess, from the cold and the wind. The winter, it got down to like 40s, low 40s, maybe even 40 or just under 40 a couple of times. But it feels colder than that because of the humidity. So I would just say pack accordingly. The biggest spiritual highlights were when we were in lessons with someone who was finally getting it. Well, I finally understood or had the faith to understand that what we were saying was true and that they were going to act on it. whether they were going to pray or read the scriptures or decide to get baptized. It was just a really, really tender experience. There are several of those. I found out after I got home from my mission about the baptisms of 3 people that I had taught while I was on my mission. There was one in Cachoeira. His wife got baptized while I was in there. And I knew that he knew that it was true. But he just had to wait and decide until he knew for himself and decided for himself that he was going to get baptized. And that was about a year ago at this point. So about a couple months after I got home from my mission. And then in my last area, there was a family that we had taught. And it was with my last companion. And we taught this family. And there were a few times where I was so sure, like I could just feel that they were going to get baptized. I wasn't sure who or when, but I knew that they were going to. We had a family home evening with them once with the bishop. And we talked about love and how we want to share that love with others, and not just that love but also joy. And when we were there and the bishop was talking and we had the family home evening, even though none of the family members were baptized yet at that point, I felt like they were an LDS family, just based on the way that their dad, he had some problems with drinking, and we had some hard times with him at first, and he kicked us out of his house once, but he warmed up to us after that point, and he was a lot more forgiving, and he opened up the family home evening, and it felt like that they were LDS, and I thought something good is going to happen of this. And none of them got baptized while I was there. But about a few weeks after I got home, I got a message from the bishop saying that the mom got baptized. And about a month later, the daughter had gotten baptized. And just a few weeks ago, like a month or so ago, one of the sons got baptized. And it just makes me so happy to know that even though it wasn't while I was there, the seeds were planted and they were on their own search for happiness. And it's changed their lives, and they're so happy now, I can tell. And it's just, it's a really tender and wonderful feeling to have been part of that. The hardest experience I went through had to do with a companion. We were very different from one another. We had different ways of dealing with things, and we didn't really communicate very well one with another, which was unfortunate because that could have solved a lot of our problems if we had just opened up and talked a little bit more. It was kind of a trying time, just trying to be positive and be a good example. At those times, sometimes it was really hard to get myself out the door during those times. There were times where I was like, I just want to stay in my bed. I just want to stay inside and do nothing or something. And at those moments, I tried really hard to just say, nope, you got to get out there. Even if you're just walking around doing nothing, it's better than sitting around in your apartment doing nothing. So at least you're out there and you're trying to show your faith to get out there and work. And there were a few days where we just kind of wandered, and I didn't feel like talking or anything, and my companion didn't feel like talking. We just kind of wandered. But to me, I felt like it was better than just giving up entirely. Just like, come on, we got to get ourselves out there. We got to do it. And it took me a while. It took probably 3 months or so to kind of finally start getting out of that groove and start working upward again and get back to where I knew I could be. So it was a really hard time. But I also am glad that I had that time, because without it I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I learned, and I wouldn't be who I am right now. Well, there's one time that there was this one sister. She was really sweet, but she liked to experiment with foods, and I guess she liked to use the sisters as guinea pigs. And there was this one time she was trying to make a lasagna with bread dough instead of with the lasagna pasta, and the dough didn't cook all the way. So it was kind of this ooey gooey mess with a bunch of other toppings on it, and my poor companion, she couldn't finish it, but I finished it and I ate more, so that the sister felt okay and wasn't like, oh, but didn't you like it? Because it was bad practice to only eat one plate of food. If you didn't eat more than one plate, then it was kind of considered rude and that you didn't like the food. So you kind of had to really get seconds every day, every time you ate with someone, just so that you didn't hurt their feelings. And so it's kind of known by, not necessarily all the sisters, but by my companions for sure, that if they couldn't finish it, that I could. Oh, there was also, I don't remember if it was cow stomach or cow tongue soup. It was kind of an interesting texture. I liked the rest of the soup, but I didn't really like the texture of the tongue or stomach, whatever it was. I also tried liver for the first time on my mission, and the way that my companion made it was really good. But then we ate it at a member's house, and it wasn't nearly as good, and it kind of ruined it for me. But that's okay. I didn't ever make this mistake, but I know of some people that have. The words for coconut and poop are very similar. There's coco, which is coconut, and coco, which is poop. So if you put the accent on the wrong part of the word, then you get some pretty strange looks. Like, did you mean coconut or did you actually mean poop? Anyway, that was when you kind of have to be careful of and watch out for. I miss the people and the food. That is probably, yeah, that's what it is, the people and the food. Especially the people that I met that were in the wards, or that were recent converts, or who are now converts, or just other investigators. There were some really sweet people that, even though they didn't progress or anything, they were really nice and kind and open and friendly. And the food is also a plus. When I was in Rio Grande, we got to know the síndico of our apartment. I think he's like the handyman, might have been the boss. I'm not exactly sure. But his name was Jubilar, and he laughed at me and my companion because we were either running or running faster every time we left the apartment. He's like, "Are you going 100 or 200 today?" Like kilometers per hour or something. Like, "We're going 200. And we were like, "See ya." He kind of watched out for us a little bit. And there was one day we got home after a long day of work, and we realized that the lights weren't working. And we realized what's going on here? We're not sure what's going on. We called the zone leaders and said, "Elders, our lights aren't turning off. Do you know what's going on?" He said, "I don't know. Check on the financial secretary." So we called him, and he's like, "Elder, our lights are off. Do you know why?" I said, "Well, I can only imagine it has something to do with not paying, like, the bill or something, but I'm sure I paid it and everything." And we're like, "Well, I certainly hope so, because we're without light, and they're going to threaten that they were going to threaten us with, not necessarily with, they weren't going to threaten us, but if we broke the seal that was put over our electricity in the main part of the building, then we would have gotten a fine." And we're like, "Oh, we don't want to cause a fine to happen here. We're not sure what's going on, but we've got stuff in the fridge. We don't want it to go bad or anything." He said, "Well, I'll see what I can do." And it was like 9:30 at that point already. We're like, "Great, what's going to happen?" And so we run down and we talk to the síndico, and we're like, "Ubila, we're not sure what's going on. Our lights are out." And he's like, "Your lights are out?" And we're like, "Yeah, our lights are out." And he started to get really angry. He's like, "Okay, you get me, whoever's in charge of you, you get me on the phone. I'm going to talk to him right now." And we're like, "Okay, calm down. It's not that big of a deal." He's like, "But you girls can't be in there all by yourself in the dark. It could be dangerous. You guys have stuff you got to take care of. You've got your fridge, you got your lights, you got this, you got that." We're like, "Okay." Like, we're not sure who we're going to talk to. So we talked to the zone leaders. We're like, "Okay, we're not sure what's going on. We think it has to do with the bill needing to get paid, or a past bill needing to get paid. We're not sure." And so Rubila, he notices that we're talking on the phone. He's like, "Okay, hand me the phone. Let me talk to her." We're like, this isn't the top guy. He's just someone who's here in town. He's like, I don't care. Give me the phone. I'm like, okay. So we hand him the phone and he starts talking. He's really angry. Calm down, Abelard. It's okay. It's okay. And he wanted us to just peel back the sticker and flip the switch and put the sticker back. We're like, no, we can't do that. That's dishonest. He's like, I don't care. He's like, but we care. We don't want that to happen. It's like, okay. So for the night, he managed to get us a giant extension cord, and he had a light, one of those like free hanging lights that you plug in for like construction work or something, that he had in his little workshop, tool shop or whatever. And he gave us that and plugged it up to the main system of the building so that we could have light for the night. And I was like, this is really sweet of him. And he's like, like, don't let anyone know that this is here, but I just don't want you guys to be in the dark tonight. I'm like, thank you so much. That's really kind of you. So we had a lamp that night that we could use, and the next day the fridge was working and everything was working. So at some point during the night, the bill got paid for whichever bill it was. It got paid, and it was kind of interesting to see the other side of Ubilar, one that really cares about us. We didn't realize he cared that much about. So it was kind of fun. So I had just been transferred to my last area, to Guaíba, and I was there with my brand new companion. We had only been together a half a day, and we had our district meeting the next day. And so it was Wednesday. So it was my first full day in the area. We'd gotten back from our district meeting and we went to lunch. And then my companion during the planning that we had the night before, she said, so there's going to be a sister that's going to go and do some visits with us this afternoon. I was like, okay, great. That'll be wonderful. And my companion told me that she'd been kind of quiet. She was kind of timid, but they had this this missionary night where they had the ward members come and they did kind of a mini training. The missionaries and the bishop did this mini training with them. Like, okay, this is how you go up and do a contact. This is how you just start talking to people about the gospel. And then we would pair off and go and hand out like Mormon.org cards or other handouts for like a Book of Mormon or for a video or any one of those things, and to go get like names and numbers and addresses for people that we could potentially go back and visit. And my companion had gone on visits with this sister in the ward that Sunday, and she said it was very, very eye-opening, and that she was it wasn't that she was quiet and timid, that's just kind of her personality. But when she was in those areas, she would share her testimony and she'd just talk to those people, and she was really good. And I thought, this is going to be wonderful. We'll have someone with us. And so from about 2 p.m. to about 9 p.m., she went on these visits with us. And when we first got started, it was so hot. We were all going to die. We thought, okay, we didn't bring enough water, we didn't bring enough sunscreen, and we don't have an umbrella. What are we going to do? And about half hour into our visits, there was some cloud cover that started coming. We thought, is it going to rain? Is it really going to rain? And a few minutes after that, it started to rain. And we considered it a great blessing. But after we left one person's house, we started walking on the roads. The sister, she said, so sisters, before we left, I had prayed that we would have some cooler weather, some nicer weather, so it wasn't super hot outside and that we wouldn't die of heat outside. And I thought, that's just really sweet that she had thought enough to pray about that, and that God had answered her simple prayer so that she could go on these visits with us. And it was just a really, really sweet testimony of prayer that she helped me to recognize. It was really a sweet experience. Congratulations! I'm really excited for you. This mission, Porto Alegre South, is a wonderful mission. You'll love the people, you'll love the food, you'll just drink in every experience there. Not all of them will be good, but they'll all be helpful in your growth and your experience and your testimony building. And I just know that you're going to be going to the right place. When I got my mission, I I was super excited, and I was excited to be there, but there were times where I thought, is this really where I'm supposed to go? And several times throughout my mission, I got that feeling that this is my mission. This is where I was meant to go. This is the perfect mission for me. And these are the people I'm supposed to meet. This is my mission president, my companions. And I promise that you will have that experience as well. You'll be able to think, this is my mission. This is my mission president, my companions, my areas. And you'll think back on these experiences with love and with the gratitude for the time that you've been able to spend and help these people. I'm super excited for you, and I know that this will be an amazing 18 years of your life, 18 months of your life.